All right, guys, we now bring on Chris Williams. He's fresh off his trip to Las Vegas, here to talk about some motorsports for us. Chris,
Yes,
how you doing?
great. I really kind of a newsy couple of weeks in the dirt late model world, which is it's kind of my shebang.
I
I was
know.
glad to see the Nick Hoffman move. That was good. About time. That excited me.
Yeah, we're gonna break down just about everything we've heard in the past week. I can't wait to talk about the rosters. That's probably the most excited from what I've been from the late model news. And then on the sprint car side too, there's a lot happening last week as well as this week, and it's still ongoing. I'm sure things will change by the time you listen to this, but we'll cover everything. Do you want to start with late models, or do you want to save that for last?
Whatever I kind of did because that's kind of my bread and butter, but I don't care where we start. I just the playoff thing's fascinating. Well, I'm in your world, Connor. You tell me where we're going, buddy.
All right, we've said too much about late models, so we got to start there. The Lucas Oil
Ah,
Dirt Late Model Series basically announced a playoff for their 2023 season. Now, the old traditionalist fan is going to sound off in the comments and throw every cuss word at them in the book because they don't like change. They don't like things getting bigger, different, whatever it may be. Basically, looking at this, it's not your standard playoff. The points don't reset until the final race, which will be four guys. Basically, they just made the last race of the season um, much bigger, I guess. Instead of 100,000 to win, if you're a title contender and you win that race, you're winning 350. But you got to race the full schedule to do that. So they're basically incentivizing drivers to come over there for that massive points championship at the end, and it's being held at Eldora. So if you're good at Eldora, it gives you plenty of incentive to try and run that tour full time.
okay, so clarify this for me. To be involved in this chase, you basically have to be at those different rounds. You don't like have to be there the races before that. Is that correct?
No, no. So it's the think of it like everything's the same with the schedule, the points. Once it gets to that round of 15 cutoff, you have to be in the top 15 in points. Once it gets to that next cutoff, you got to be in the top 12. Next cutoff, top eight. So you just have to be higher up in the points. And if you're racing every race and there's 12 full timers, you're going to be in the top 15. You're going to be in the top 12. It's just a matter of getting up to race in the top four. And that's kind of the hard part because Tim McCready's ran that series. You know, all the guys that have been very competitive in that tour are probably going to come back. Sans Brandon Shepard, we're waiting on his decision to see where he goes. But it's gonna look like the same thing. It's just the last race is now basically gonna pay its winner anywhere from 300,000 to 350 or 250 to 350, depending on where they would finish in the last race. But the
Yeah, I
highest
mean, I
driver of the four is the one getting the title.
I guess I don't have a huge opinion on this other than it'll certainly make those last few events more interesting. I mean, I don't deny, and I am kind of your old late model purist. Like I loved the idea, like when I was a kid, where you'd show up and you just didn't know who was going to be there that night because they're hopping around and stuff like that. But there's so much more on the line now with streaming, right? Like, I mean, Flo's got a contract with these guys. You want to know that you're going to have X amount of professionals in each field, and that's what this feels like to me. It's trying to secure that. I saw some of the World of Outlaws stuff that came out, and like that word exclusive getting tossed around a lot, right? And we saw last year why with the Kyle Larson thing, and I understand why they're doing it. But that's what these things feel like to me. It's just like there's so many more avenues now for these guys to go out and make a living, where the sanctioning bodies now have to kind of protect themselves and protect their television partners, which was never really a thing in the past. And here's my thing on this chase, and I understand it, but I don't really understand it, if that makes sense. I think probably a lot of our listeners want to just are kind of like me and want to see it play out once, because my guess is I like to get to that race in Wheatland every year, the round of 15. One of the first races I can get to. And um I'm guessing by the time we hit the August 26th race at Port Royal, we're all going to have like some pretty serious complaints about how this played out. And I guess my encouragement to late model fans be that's okay. Because I would rather see them be proactive in trying to move the sport forward. I think they did that. They had to swallow their pride last year with that flow racing thing. Connor, you knew how many times did I text you last spring losing my mind because of that godforsaken Mav TV Plus app? This is the worst app in the history of apps. They had to swallow some pride there. And that's generally my biggest complaint of dirt racing is it's a bunch of really stubborn, passionate people who have a ton of pride. And for them to do this, to make any sort of a change in payouts and points is a pretty big progressive move for a sport that doesn't really like to change. So I'm going to go by what you're saying. And I know you've talked to people who understand it a lot more than I do. If that's really the case, if we don't feel like it's going to change the racing much, then I'm all for it. I mean, it doesn't take a lot either to get into the top 15, does it?
No, but
Like,
I mean, the
can a guy
points.
miss?
I think you're missing
Yeah,
the points. The points don't change. Like if you're in the top 15, you have the same amount of points. There's not like a reset where they all tie each other.
so you could be 16th in Wheatland and be 11th at the
At,
July 15th deal.
I mean, yeah, yeah.
Well, that's kind of stupid. So what's the point?
Just the last four, the final race.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. They just
All
beefed up
right.
that, but they made it so you have to run every race to be able to be eligible for that.
Whatever. Like that
Somewhat of an
then my
ingenious move,
instinct
no.
yeah, then my instinct was right that they're trying to just protect themselves from losing guys along the way. And you're not going to have as many pickers and choose, or maybe you'll have more. Maybe there's going to be some guys that be like, I don't want anything to do with this, and they'll go the other way. But
Yeah, I do want to, squash some worries from people that think this is going to create like a dirty move to win a championship or something. I went to the Eldora Million last year. There were 7 chances for Davenport. Why can't I think of who finished second? Was it McCready?
probably
It was
because
all
those two
five.
finish one, and then Overton throw him
Yeah,
in there
yeah.
and
It was,
Marler. I mean,
yeah,
basically
Marler.
one of those four win every time.
But it was those last 5 guys that were on the lead lap and the late race restarts, and they had every chance to take any of each other out. No one did that. So I don't
No,
think this is going to change.
I think we're way past that in the sport. I mean, I just do. When's the last time something like that happened? Tyler Erb and
All right, Gateway Dirt Nationals, the indoor race a couple weeks ago.
I watched
It wasn't for the win. I think it was out of frustration. But
was that the
it was the Carpenter and I think it was Hudson. It was Hudson O'Neill.
So yeah, that's my instinct is that we're seeing a lot of these sanctioning bodies. You can talk about the World of Outlaws if you want, but they are trying to protect their entity, and I get it because there's just more involved in the gate now. Like you're gonna if whatever agreement Lucas Oil has with Flow, and then all of a sudden you're drawing a car count of 15 cars and 10 of them are touring, like then that's a problem for Flow. Why are they putting right? To me, that's what we're looking at here.
Absolutely. Have you seen the World of Outlaws roster for late models next year?
No, I haven't. Let's run through this because I love doing the debate on which one's better. This is great. Let's go.
Lucas Oil, Lolio, Lucas Oil, the small guys over there. They got 4 guys committed right now. It's Tim McCready, Ricky Thornton Jr., Hudson O'Neill, and Devin Moran. No one else has officially came out and said they're running Lucas. So kind of small numbers for the little guys over there, Chris. It's okay. The big guys.
Most people don't understand our inside joke, Connor. By the way, you're just going to piss off people at Lucas Oil.
Yeah, well, you explain it at the end, and then they spend all that time getting all mad, and they're like, "Oh, he's just screwing with us."
It's been a long running joke that I've said that the Lucas Oil series is a better series than the World of Outlaws, and Connor's been a fierce supporter of the World of Outlaws. So there you go.
So the backing of that argument is something I wanted to touch on anyways, because someone asked if the High Limit series, sprint car series that Brad Sweet and Kyle Larson are co-promoting, if that could ever take the hierarchy, the top spot of the top sprint car racing series in the country. And the whole reason we have this inside joke is because late models don't really have that, and it hurts the sport because there's not one that everyone watches every week. They're going to different races, they're going to different TV channels, they're going to different streaming avenues, different everything. You basically don't know who's going to show up where unless they're running a series full time, and there's so many series to watch. So it's kind of an issue with that, and I don't think the World of Outlaws would ever fall off that pedestal in the sprint car world. And you don't want that. You really don't. You like that brand. It's there. There's ways you can make it better. Voice your opinions. That's my only advice on that. But so I'm thinking when I'm getting into late models and getting into what the sport is, I'm like, well, wouldn't the World of Outlaws be bigger? Like, I barely hear anything about this Lucas deal, and they have the top sprint car series. So like, wouldn't the Outlaws late models be bigger? And at the same time, Brandon Shepard's kicking everyone's ass in the Outlaws and going to Lucas shows, winning those. And he's just running the World of Outlaws flag all the way around Chris's head. We were doing laps around Chris in 2020.
Dude,
Since
they were the cars were so bad though. His competition was terrible. It's like throwing Alabama in the MAC. Watching him play, like, honestly, how are you so blind to not see the difference in those two series for the
now
last
you're
3
right
or 4
now.
years?
I think the first year I was getting into it, and we had Ricky Weiss was with the Outlaws.
You were blinded by the brand.
Bloomquist was with the Outlaws. All the big names were.
He never won.
It doesn't matter. He was just there. I don't think I've seen Bloomquist win a race.
Oh God, I have. I remember
Definitely not when I was at.
Every night you go, it's him or Moyer.
Right.
One of the two, him or Moyer. Yep. Or Rick Eckert. He won a lot back in the day.
Someone's going to be pissed that I said Bloomquist sucks, and that's not what I'm saying at all. The World of Outlaws roster for next year. So we got Nick Hoffman joining them. Ryan Gustin is back. Brent Larson's back. Todd Cooney is going to run with the Outlaws. Chris Madden, Peyton Freeman, really excited for him. Saw him a lot on the Hell Tour. Max Blair is running with Boom Briggs, 2-car team.
I saw that. Yep.
Gordy Gundaker hasn't announced it. Last he told me that he was planning on coming back with the Outlaws this year, so expect him back. I would assume Dennis Erb Jr. is going to come back and try to repeat for the title. And Josh Richards is still without a ride, and we're still waiting on the Brandon Shepard decision. I think that's the big domino to fall out of these two. What do you think about that roster so far?
I think it's fine. I mean, it's got a lot of really. Madden's the pride dog of that group, right?
Yeah, I think so.
He would be the favorite of that roster.
Yeah, if he would have ran full time, if he would have ran full time this year, he probably would have won the whole thing easily.
Yeah, it's a good roster. It just lacks the big dog, but yeah. I don't know if that's necessarily great for the series. Did you say Gustin?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm glad he's going to be back there. Listen, I don't necessarily need the big names. Honestly, like, it got to a point last year, if Jonathan Davenport was in a race, it was less appealing for me to watch. Just being honest, like it's different than like when Larson's in a sprint car race, because that's not normal, right? So it's like, oh, Larson's here. What's he going to do? You have to watch it. When Davenport is in a late model race now, it's just kind of like, God, Vegas had an odd on this. He's minus 600, right? And it just makes it not that. So, like, to me, what the roster laid out is very appealing, because I feel like 10 of those guys could win it on any night, which isn't that. I mean, that's what we always talk about with racing. It's Formula One versus NASCAR, right? Like, that's what you want out of a series.
Yeah,
so I'm
absolutely.
okay with that. Yeah, it's just the key will be how many of these guys, and like, what does this Lucas Oil thing do? How many of these guys decide they still want to pick and choose, right? Because that's the key. What about the Race XR deal? What's their situation?
I'm now they purposely schedule races like off of Lucas weekends, and I haven't
Okay.
consolidated those schedule. I don't think they have a conflict though.
Okay.
I
That
can
was my
check.
question.
Yeah, they only have
No, you
13,
don't got to.
they only have 13 races next year. They dropped from like 22 or 25 to 13, so we'll see how that works. That Stewart date is TBA on their schedule, but it's the same weekend, so I wouldn't be shocked to see them in Iowa again. I haven't seen a Castrol Flow late model series schedule out yet either, so we'll
Those
get more.
tend to not compete either.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
when do you expect these guys? These guys have got to make decisions here soon, right?
I mean, some of them just they go run in the southeast because none of the shows conflict with each other, and they get out of it, and then they make their decision. So I mean, the Outlaws had like what 19 guys that said they were full time. Simpson said he was full time with the Outlaws during the first race last year. So I mean, they all go into
And
it
then they have a.
thinking like, if we have a good enough week, we'll keep going. But
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. It does feel like the sport's in a really good spot, though. I agree with you. I've always thought that was the thing between the late models versus the sprint cars. But now, like the older I get, it's kind of like I appreciate them both for what they are. Like it really does, and I'm not trying to be snarky. It always has felt to me like the Outlaws are a really, really high end, like tier two product to Lucas Oil. But but I've oftentimes enjoyed Outlaw shows more because regional guy like I like really good regional racing, right? Like that's my like I'd rather go to an MLRA or an SLMR race most of the time because I like that level. And I like the fact that, like you said, like a Chris Simpson could. I mean, he's won big shows. He's probably not a great example, but his brother Chad, or that a lot of those guys can just show up at an outlaw show and really compete. Where when they're going up against Davenport and Overton and like Marlar, it's like they just haven't seemingly had a shot. It's the same five guys, and they put on a hell of a show. I mean, I saw one of the greatest races of my life in Davenport last year, right? When Hudson O'Neill, I mean, that was a phenomenal race. I love the Lucas Oil series. I've been a brash defender of it for a decade now. But the outlaw roster that you laid out for me seems like it'll be really, really competitive, which is at the end of the day what I want. I'm just a late model fan. I just want to see really good races. I don't Moyer's not really in the game anymore. I'm so old school with him. Until Junior comes along and starts showing the ability to win some races, then I'm probably not going to really have much of a favorite driver. So I just want the best races possible. And you may be onto something with your Outlaws this year based on that roster you laid out.
for sure, real quick before we get into sprint cars, this makes 3 crown jewel late model races at Eldora over the course of the year. Is it too much? Is it oversaturation?
Yeah, it's too much. And it absolutely is because you want fans at different areas of the country to be able to see some of those races. In my opinion, that's what makes them different. 3 is too much. 2 of them I absolutely understand. But I mean there's a reason why they're going there because it makes money and it's really good racing and clearly the facility is probably, the best in the country depending on who you talk to, but it waters all of them down.
Yeah,
Do you agree?
absolutely. Yeah, and my open suggestion to them would be have like a true NASCAR playoff points format, and then hold the finale at Bristol Dirt. That's me speaking from my heart.
Yeah, I would fight you in the Bristol Dirt thing, but I like the concept.
Yeah, they're
I
not going
like your
back there this
concept.
year. You hear about that?
Yes, I did. I heard
Not a
about that
single one
last
of the
week
dirt
from a
series.
source.
It made me cry.
Not me.
Oh man, I wish you would have gotten
Racing
one
a
of the
dirt
one, especially
track.
that Larson one. That Larson run back to the front is I'm gonna
Oh,
come
it
back
was
for a long time.
that was epic. I'll give you that. That one was epic. But if I never see a late model race at Bristol for the rest of my life, it will not bother me a bit.
All right, so Larson and Sweet's High Limit Sprint Car Series is announcing its schedule. They hyped everyone up. They're like Monday night, 7 o'clock. We're gonna announce something, and they announced 3 races at a time. One of those though is Burlington, so I'm excited for that. It will be Knoxville opens its local season. The Outlaws come the next week. And then the Tuesday after that, the High Limit Series races at Burlington. So excited for that for Iowa racing fans. It's a big get for them. I believe that one's paying 23,000 to win. Their season opener is paying 50. They've announced 6 races so far, so they're doing 3 a day. And there is some rumors that High Limit could be sanctioning the the Wednesday, Thursday days of the Kings Royal at Eldora are not World of Outlaws sanctioned this year. So there's some rumors that Thursday race is going to be a very high paying sprint car race that we haven't seen a figure like that in sprint car racing. If you can read between the lines of what I'm saying. But there's some rumors that High Limit is sanctioning it. I don't have any confirmation that they will or not. I guess we'll probably find out tomorrow, but we're recording this on Tuesday, so.
Well, you just gave me an idea. Like, why don't I mean, I understand you have to match up with schedules with so it'd be like with the Lucas Oil, with the World of Outlaws and whatnot. But why doesn't like Larson and Sweet team up with Flo on the Tuesday night thing and do late model / sprint shows, and you would get more of a gate. It would be a better television product, and you'd probably be able to pay more because of that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I do know it's like from everyone that works on tracks that I've ever talked to, they said like preparing a track to race sprint cars and late models on the same night is so difficult.
Yeah. Well, and you talk to our friends at Boone, and they learned that first year with the Hawkeye on like they'd never prepped the track for open late models before.
Yeah.
They had only done the spec IMCA ones, and it was like a total nightmare for them. And then our friend Bobby Pierce talked about racing it too, like how he gave you that great quote. It was it last year or the year before, but it was this phenomenal quote on that.
Might
So
have been
I
the year
understand.
before. Yeah.
I'm just looking at like television products, right? Because that's where this is going. And like to me, like that would be super appealing to me. You know what news really caught my eye this week that got me really fired up was the SRX going to ESPN on Thursday nights.
Yeah, I didn't even have that written down. Yeah.
See, like to me, that's brilliant because that whole deal, it's always going on like during the NBA playoffs, and I'm watching it because I'm a geek and you're a racing geek, right? But you're
Yeah.
competing with NASCAR.
Dude,
You're
it was
competing
so
with
hard. It was so hard to watch Saturday nights in the summer. It's
you just
loaded
never,
with racing.
yeah. There's so much stuff going on, like because you and I are dirt guys, right? So I'm way more interested in the Lucas Oil show that night than but that's a product that I really want to pay attention to because I think it's really cool. And I like bringing the old guys back, and I love what Tony's trying to do with that. And it also makes sense that Tony Stewart would get in bed with Kyle Larson and Brad Sweet with this thing to answer your previous question. Totally makes sense. But I guess, Connor, like to me, that is brilliant. Like that's going to take that series to another level. It's never going to be NASCAR. It's not trying to be, but putting it on Thursday nights, prime time. Oh, we're competing with Major League Baseball now. Okay. Maybe you're
Yeah.
competing with like the Thursday night of a 3-night World of Outlaws show. Okay. But it's just so much more manageable. And yeah, I know that again, that's a series I always throw on the DVR and I end up watching about 20% of what I want. That number will go from 20 to about 75 this year.
Yeah, and that's a big thing with the midweek stuff. And I know that the stereotypical dirt fans sitting at their computer or phone and screaming like, why doesn't NASCAR ever do any midweek stuff? They've tried. The ratings on Sunday just dwarf every other time slot you can put them in. These, dirt series never really, they don't want to run on a Sunday afternoon, right? It's not tangible to run during the day in the summer on a Sunday. They're running midweek, they're running Saturdays, and the midweek stuff has emerged so much. And thank God we named the site Always Race Day because all that stuff's coming now, and you basically don't have to go 2 days without watching a race.
Just compare it to the world we live in daily, Connor, in college football. Games used to be on Saturday, and every once in a while you would have one game on Thursday. Or look at the NFL. I mean, the NFL is how many days a week now? Like we got Saturday
Yeah.
games, we got
I
Thursday
know.
games, we got Sunday games, and it's all because of television. And I'm telling there's going to be a point, and maybe it's this year. There's a come to Jesus moment with our sport and dirt racing, where they got to get their shit together as far as how to handle media, as far as how to put out proper information, and they've got to go from like the real blue collar that we all grew up in, dirt track Saturday night, and this whole thing will have to be different because that's where we're heading to. It's like we're not there yet. The next TV deal that Dirt Vision and they own the World of Outlaws, so it's a little bit different, which is a brilliant business model on their end. They were way ahead of the curve. But the next deal that like Mav signs with Flow, there'll be like real negotiations, and
Yeah.
it's going to be like a real sport. And when the sport needs to be ready to take off at that point, once more money's getting pumped into this thing.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think we're on the cusp of it happening soon. And for those people that might not understand, Chris, he's not saying like everything's going to get. I mean, stuff's already a lot of stuff is sponsored. That might be a turnoff sometimes. I usually just say like, shoot, okay, whatever. This is sponsored by this person now. Well, that's people putting money in the sport, and you gotta be really professional as a series, I would say, and get ready for that and hype it up. Like it's the next race is the Super Bowl. The next race is always the Super Bowl, and that's the best way to think about it. Social media wise, everywhere like that. We're not calling out any series or employees or anything like that for what they're.
No,
It's just like
it's a
that's where
transition.
everything's at. We're right on that cusp.
Because there's another thing too, and I always reference when I was a kid going to races, but it's where I come from, and I think our listeners will understand it. I remember going to races and we're like, oh my God, this thing pays $10,000 to win, man. Everybody's going to be here. That hasn't changed. Well, the costs of everything have gone up. And these guys are going to start looking at these broadcast networks and like, well, are my sponsors necessarily paying me more? For some of them, maybe,
And
but
that's
they're getting all
happening a
the
little bit. That's already happening
good.
a little bit. Sheldon Haudenschild had a lot of strong statements about that. And I would say like the start money's gotten better. The number of 10,000s to win is like, that's a minimum now.
Yeah,
Uh,
it better be.
yeah.
It better be because there's more money and that's just going to keep growing. So that's my point. Like the infrastructure within these sports has got to continue to grow. I gotta go get my kid. All right, brother.
You're all good. Chris is getting his kid from where? Daycare?
Take care. Yeah, I gotta go get her. If she's the last one sitting there, she feels like Dick Trickle back in the day when he was car is.
All
So
right.
I just pissed somebody off. That wasn't a shot at Dick Trickle, I swear. All right, thank you, brother.
Yeah,
Good
thanks for
show
doing it.
today. We'll do another one soon. All right.
Absolutely.